Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics Football. It's Fran here, and with the Ronaldo price being revealed at 12.5 million, it's a fantastic time to really look at a wild card if you actually think that your team, would benefit from it, and if you'd like to get ahead of some kind of changes in the team that you'd like to for the long term or the medium term. For me personally, a lot of people would say, I have a very decent rank right now. Why would I wild card? And I think there are a couple issues with my squad that I would like to alleviate through a wild card. And on top of that, I would also say that a wild card shouldn't just service people who have, a 7 or 8 or 9 players unavailable. More often than not, if you're a very kind of avid FPL player and you stay on top of the news, you stay on top of injuries and transfers and whatnot, you aren't going to find yourself with a squad that has, 4 to 5 or more unplayable players. So I think the idea with the wild card is finding the right time where you think that there's good value in terms of maybe getting ahead of some price rises and price falls, and also setting your team in the right direction before the template changes. And I think I have the opportunity to do this, especially with Ronaldo coming in. I think he really changes things. So when you actually, for example, look at my base team, the issues for me were transferring out of Ings, making sure Livramento is not a starter on my team, getting out of Son because I don't think Tottenham are creating enough with the current midfield that they have. We really saw them struggle to score versus Watford. It was, to be honest, quite a fluky goal from Son, who's in my team, and I'd like to move out of him at a good time. I even have the opportunity to capitalize on a price rise from Reguilon, even though I actually think that Tottenham defense is not bad. On top of that as well, it's about kind of getting ahead of some of the fixture swings possible, such as getting a Wolves defender in, and also basically ultimately going for a 3 forward striker formation, which is what I like. And I will be showing 2 wildcard templates today that show this formation. The first one is actually going to include Trent, and I think a lot of the discussion around wildcarding this week will have to do with whether we keep Trent in our teams and whether we move on away from Trent into some other players. The thing with Trent is, as a 7.5 player, he's competing with players like Greenwood and Jota. And what's interesting about Greenwood and Jota, I think, is Jota really benefits from if the Firmino news is worse than imagined. And Greenwood sort of benefits from the fact that I think some of the other Man United players are out of form right now, and he almost has basically he should be the second or third name on the team sheet basically after Fernandes and Ronaldo for me. Ronaldo might not necessarily play the full 90 minutes. He might be coming on as a late sub, but I do think you have to kind of get ahead of Ronaldo coming into FPL and his price kind of rise surging post game week 4. So that's why both my drafts will incorporate Ronaldo. But going back to Trent, I think the interesting thing is that he seems like clearly a set and forget option if Liverpool's defense are as good as they were in previous years, with exception to the last one. I actually think that there is a strong case to say that that is true. The issue now, of course, is with someone like Lukaku, you have the opportunity, for example, within game week 7, in, for example, this structure here where I don't have Lukaku, to maybe drop Trent, as you can see here, and also drop Calvert-Lewin so that you can kind of exchange that for maybe another 4.5 or 4.0 mid defender rather, and have Lukaku inside the team. The only tricky thing here, of course, is people are going to say, how are you going to get a player like Reece James in the team? And I think it's quite simple, to be honest. I think Greenwood, for me, I see him as a good punt versus Newcastle United, because I think Newcastle have been, frankly, quite terrible lately. And I think that there's a clear kind of... I think it's warranted, to be honest, to attack Newcastle. We saw Southampton build, I think, 3.54 XG, which is huge. That's the second highest haul of the entire season so far. And it shows that Newcastle clearly is a team that can be attacked. And I think this United team can clearly prey on them. So I think I kind of like the transfer from, let's say, Greenwood to Rafinha game week 5 if Greenwood doesn't work out, or even Torres. And that kind of cost saving will eventually find me with enough money to go to someone like Reece James. So if I drop Greenwood, for example, to someone like Rafinha, I can easily move into someone like a Reece James from Marcel. I can also even go to Reece James from Calvert-Lewin potentially, and Alexander-Arnold. So that is kind of how I see things working out with this sort of structure here. The reason why Benrahma and Antonio sit in my team is because they've always been in my team. Nothing has changed there. I think if you don't have Benrahma or Antonio in your team, they're not set and forget. Maybe Antonio arguably is, based on the form he is, but I think Benrahma still has some alternatives at his price, given the fact that he's actually at 6.4 right now. Maybe you could get ahead of Rafinha's nice fixtures. You could also try some of the 6.0 midfielders. I do really think it is a bit of a trap to play with the 6.0 midfielders, though, in my opinion. I would actually much rather play with someone like Diaz, who I think is much more consistent and set and forget at that sort of price. And so I think if you're going for a structure where you have Calvert-Lewin, where you have Antonio, Ronaldo makes a lot of sense with Salah as your two premiums. And you can kind of have these nice punts in the midfield for some teams that are very effective right now in attack, while still keeping quite a strong kind of defensive backline. Because if you look at Christensen's tough games, it's arguably really just a Man City game. That's a kind of nice game for Ayling maybe to step in potentially. It's not the best of games, to be honest. Even Livramento has a nice game versus Wolves at home to kind of fill in if you really don't want to play Christensen at that point in time. So I think it's not too bad. But that's really how I see things right now. In terms of a 3 premium draft, I actually think you can really try and fit Salah, Ronaldo, and Lukaku in your team. But it does 100% mean, in my opinion, that you drop Trent. Just because I like the fact that I kind of want to play around Torres in my team, to be quite honest. And I think that if you go for, let's say, a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3 draft, you can afford Salah, Ronaldo, and Lukaku in your team. And the idea, of course, is having Diaz pretty much, who is a set and forget option. He kind of comes in place of someone like Trent. Maybe Shaw can already be dropped for someone like Christensen or Rudiger, to be honest. I think Rudiger makes a little bit more sense for now. And similar to the situation where I mentioned you can make a double transfer, you can certainly drop Gray from your team. And when Chelsea have these nice fixtures in game week 7, you can move into a structure where you play a 4-3-3 with Livramento getting replaced, or let's say Ayling getting replaced for Reece James. So you can easily do something like Reece James over here. So you can put James in and then replace Gray with a 4.5 midfielder who maybe, let's say, would be Sissoko or Gilmore or someone like that. And you can at that point maybe play a 4-3-3 structure like in these fixtures. And I think that also has a lot of priority as well. The idea behind this draft is that you kind of hold on Ronaldo, Salah, and Lukaku, and you see them as set and forget options potentially for the remainder of the season. These are players who I think are clearly in teams who create the most chances, with exception to City, who you'd like to kind of capture with Torres, hopefully. But we'll see how things progress there. But there's of course still the exit clause of kind of Rafinha as well, and some other 6.0 midfielders if we think Torres isn't going to work out. So I think that is the kind of wildcard structure that I'd like to play around. I'm probably more inclined to actually going with this sort of draft structure here, where I still have Trent in my team because Trent has so many kind of good fixtures. But let me know what you guys think about the wildcard so far. I think nothing is completely clear as per now as to what you have to get. I think people do have to make decisions on, whether Jota is allowed to play full games, because Greenwood could easily be replaced by Jota. And at that point, I'd be looking to kind of move away from Torres potentially if he doesn't seem set and forget when KDB and Foden get back. We could also even look to maybe move away from Calvert-Lewin. There are some nice price downgrades, to be honest, when we look at Jimenez and Bamford. So Jimenez, of course, is at a fantastic price if we look by midfielders. He's at 7.4 and Bamford is 7.9. So those are really interesting options as well. If you're looking at these kind of draft templates and considering why I don't really like someone like a Leeds midfielder immediately, is because I think you can still transition to Rafinha quite clearly. I'm also not really tempted to go with two 6.0 kind of price point midfielders, because I think there's much more value in the 6.5 and aboves. And that's just simply how things have panned out early on in the season. With Jack Harrison, for example, you're dealing with maybe him having to get rotated by Daniel James. When you're looking at players like Sarr or players like Troy and Trincao, I think the latter two are much less clinical, and I don't think it'll change even if the fixtures are nicer. I think they might have more goal involvements, but they won't be these kind of consistent options. Whereas I think the Wolves defense look like a clear set and forget option for the next few game weeks for me, because I think they've really undersold, in terms of both the attacking and the defensive end. But I have more faith in the defensive end getting things in order, and you would benefit from the clean sheet anyways. It's not like you have a specific reliance on one player to kind of create these chances for you. When you look at the chances, they're really split between Trincao, Troy, and Jimenez, and I think none of them are clear talismanic options where you can say, okay, we can move out from them. And that's pretty much how I see things right now in terms of the wild card. I think there are plenty of options. A lot of you guys will have to be making decisions between which 7.5 players you want. Do you want Trent? Do you want Greenwood? Do you want Jota? And I think there's plenty of capacity to actually go 2 or 3 premiums. I don't think it's crazy. I think this season we do have a lot of flexibility, especially with the ability to go with 4 defender formations. I don't think they're out of order. And that's pretty much how I see things right now. We'll see how things develop in the international break and based on injury news and whatnot. But these are kind of my 2 initial kind of wildcard template ideas. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video.